Do you remember Ring Pops? The ring that is both fashionable and delicious? Today I'm going to show you sugar packet for sugar packet, gram for gram, exactly how much sugar all of these different amazing foods contain. So go ahead and guess. Let me know what you think has the most sugar or what you think has the least sugar, and let's see how surprised you are to see how much sugar these foods really contain. So the reason that I'm using sugar packets here to represent how much sugar is in these foods is because this is something we can kind of compare to how many sugar packets do we add to our coffee or do we add to our tea. So we'll just get started right in here. This ring pop that I have here has 11 grams of sugar. Now each sugar packet contains 4 grams of sugar, so I'm having to round just a little bit. So I'm estimating that there are 3 packets of sugar contained in this ring pop. And so you could kind of picture trying to fit all that sugar in the ring pop. I'm gonna lay these here to represent those 3 packets of sugar. They're contained in that one ring pop. So moving right along here, I'm gonna go ahead and do this Hershey's spreads. So this is a little, snack pack here. You've got some little sticks that you dip in your little Hershey's chocolate there. Now this little tiny, pretty adorable little snack pack contains 23 grams of sugar. So that's going to be represented by about 6 packets of sugar. So I will lay my 6 sugar packets here so you can see those. And I think that's interesting because this is not very much food. This is not a very big snack. So we'll see how that weighs out compared to some of these other snacks as we go along. So when we look at the Yoplait, here we have a little Yoplait original yogurt, strawberry flavored. This was my favorite back when I used to eat Yoplaits because this little baby also has 26 grams of sugar. So it's worth noting. Again, I'm gonna represent this yogurt with 6 sugar packets. This is about 24 grams of sugar actually in here. And it's worth noting that this little yogurt and this little Hershey's chocolate snack have very comparable amounts of sugar. And I think, most people when they're reaching for a yogurt, this is something that's healthy, it's a healthy snack, or it's a breakfast. But you need to realize that this got about as much sugar as this little Hershey's dessert snack right here. Now I want to go ahead and compare it to another yogurt. Now this one is an organic, Green Valley Organics yogurt. Now, organic is always going to be a healthier choice than conventional, but a lot of you guys comment and say, well, isn't it possible that some organic food also isn't good for you? Just because it's organic, does that mean it's healthy? And it's a really good question because unfortunately the answer is no. So here with this yogurt that's organic and supposedly healthier, it also has 19 grams of sugar. So maybe not quite as offensive as the Yoplait here. This is going to be represented by only 5 packets of sugar. But still, you could ask yourself, would you ever add 5 packets of sugar to your tea or to your coffee? Because that's how much sugar you're ingesting with this little yogurt product here. So moving right along, next up is this Grandma's chocolate chip cookie package here. These are very common, convenience stores, vending machines. You see a lot of these little grandma cookies. These little babies, in addition to a horrifying ingredient list, contain 26 grams of sugar. Now that is for both of the cookies, and that will be represented here by 6 sugar packets. So again, you could scarf these cookies down in a matter of seconds, honestly. But if you were actually gonna have to sit there and, eat sugar packets, do you think you could sit there and eat 6 sugar packets? I personally don't think I could handle that, but that's what we're doing when we do something like consuming products like these. So next up here is a little box of Jell-o mix. So, of course, you're maybe not going to eat the whole entire bowl of Jell-o. I know that I definitely have made packets of Jell-o and eaten the entire thing before. So this package contains about 80 grams of sugar. So the serving size is a quarter of the package, and there's 19 grams of sugar in a quarter of the package. So we are looking at a pretty huge amount of sugar contained in this Jell-o. So this Jell-o is being represented by 19 sugar packets, and here they are. 19 sugar packets in that Jell-o. So basically this is pure sugar, right? So next up, let's talk about these Gummy Bears. Do you like Gummy Bears? Some people like Gummy Bears on their ice cream. I'm not really into that. You can let me know if you like things like that. So these Gummy Bears, there's only 21 grams of sugar per serving, but there's 2.5 servings in the bag. So this whole bag of Gummy Bears contains around 52 grams of sugar, and that is going to be represented by 13 sugar packets. So again, you know, with the Jell-o, you're probably maybe not going to eat the whole entire box of Jell-o, the whole 19 sugar packets. But with these Gummy Bears, you're going to probably eat the whole bag. And that's 13 packets of sugar right there, just in these really cute little tiny bears. So I grabbed these pork and beans because sure enough, they do contain some sugar. Now this little can of beans, we've only got 7 grams per serving, but this is why it's always important to look at the label and see how many servings in the can, right? Because there's actually about 3.5 servings in the can. Chances are you're gonna eat the whole can of beans. So in this one singular can of beans, we've got about 25 grams of sugar. So I'm gonna represent that with 6 sugar packets. Again, that's a little less than the actual amount, but we're rounding here. And I just think it's important to note that in this can of pork and beans, we have the same amount of sugar that we had in this little Hershey's dipping thing, that we had in this little Yoplait thing, and that we had in these cookies over here. So sugar is not always just going to be found in things that are sweet and are dessert-like. Everything from pork and beans to pasta sauce, dressings, you need to look at the sugar content because almost all of those processed foods are going to contain some sugar. All right, so let's go ahead and do this Snickers. And this is kind of a tiny little cute Snickers. I think if I was gonna eat one of these, I would probably end up eating 2. But this little tiny adorable cute Snickers bar contains 27 grams of sugar. So that 27 grams of sugar, once again, I'm going to use, here we go, 7 packets of sugar to represent this Snickers bar, and I will come set this over here. Now in a moment, I'm actually gonna show you ounce for ounce how much sugar all of these things contain, because right now you're just looking at this package contains this much sugar, right? So this this little thing of yogurt has this much sugar. So in a second, I'm gonna reconfigure these and show you ounce for ounce how much sugar these different foods contain, and we'll see how much they move around. So now we're moving on to Milk's favorite cookie, the Oreo. Now, the funniest thing about this Oreo package is that the serving size is only 3 cookies. Now, I don't know anybody who only eats 3 Oreos when they sit down to eat Oreos. But if you were just gonna eat 3 cookies, that would be about 14 grams of sugar, which I can represent by probably 3 sugar packets. So it's worth noting that there's about 12 servings in the full package of cookies here, and that would be 168 grams of sugar, which would be about 42 sugar packets contained in this whole thing. So you could imagine if you ate half of this bag, you would be eating about 21 packets of sugar, which is probably more realistic, right? If somebody's gonna sit down and eat Oreos, they're probably gonna eat, what, half the bag? How many Oreos do you eat in one sitting? Maybe that's a good question. Have you ever sat down and eaten an entire bag of Oreos like this in one sitting? I'm dying to know. So let's talk about this NutraGrain bar. So I talked about NutraGrain bars in my video about snacks because I think this is something that people grab when they're hungry, they need a little snack, and what I hope that you take home from this video is that this is more of a dessert than a snack. Okay, so inside of this little tiny NutraGrain bar that you could gobble up in a couple of seconds, we've got 11 grams of sugar. And again, I can represent that with, about 3 sugar packets. So what I want you to notice is that this NutraGrain bar has about the same amount of sugar as 3 Oreos, or about the same amount of sugar as my little ring pop over here. So I will set these back down over here with their 3 sugar packets. So these Skittles that you eat when you want to taste the rainbow, these Skittles contain 46 grams of sugar in this little, 2-ounce package. So that 46 grams of sugar I'm going to represent with about 11 sugar packets. So here we go. This is, up here with the Gummy Bears and the Jell-o, talking about really, really high amounts of sugar. I'll set my Skittles back over there with my sugar. So I grabbed these little apple chips because I thought, oh, hey, maybe this will be a good healthy alternative to all of these other foods that I'm completely bashing. So here it says 4 apples inside, and this is cool because our ingredients are just apples, no artificial flavors, no sugar added, nothing weird. So if this was on my little snack, best and worst snack video I did, would definitely point out that, hey, this is a far superior product to all of these things that do contain a really long ingredient list. But it's worth noting that here we've got, it says 4 apples inside, but you could devour this bag of little apple chips in a couple of minutes, maybe a couple of seconds, right? These would go down very quickly. But if you actually sat there and ate 4 apples, you might not even be able to eat 4 whole apples in one sitting because they contain so much fiber that they're going to actually fill you up and satisfy your hunger. So you satisfy your sweet tooth and you satisfy your hunger a little bit. It's a double win. Because this little baby of basically dehydrated apples still contains 44 grams of sugar. And it's worth pointing out that that is almost as much as contained in that bag of Skittles I just talked about. So the take-home message here is that eating the whole apple itself, not the core and stuff, but eating the actual apple is going to be, way, way, way healthier than this. It's definitely going to be better for your waistline as well. So these little bag of apple chips here is going to be represented by 10 sugar packets. So that brings us on to these Twinkies. Now, these Twinkies, at least they have a little bit more realistic serving size. So the serving size is 2 Twinkies. The box contains 10 Twinkies. So for 2 Twinkies, you're going to be taking in 33 grams of sugar, and I have 8 sugar packets here to represent that. So if we took the whole box contains 165 grams of sugar. So then to compare it to the Oreos, for instance, this was 168 grams of sugar in that whole bag. So these are very comparable if you sat down and ate the whole box or ate the whole bag of cookies. Now let's look at each of these foods, ounce for ounce, gram for gram, how much sugar do they contain? So now these foods have been rearranged from least amount of sugar per ounce to most amount of sugar per ounce. So we'll just go through these. With these beans, we are looking at about 1.6 grams of sugar per ounce, but it's worth noting this is a 15-ounce can. So I've got a half a sugar packet there representing that 1.6 grams of sugar per ounce. But again, remember that if you ate that whole can, you would still be consuming 24.5 grams of sugar in that whole can. So in this yogurt, we are looking at about 3 grams of sugar per ounce, represented by 1 sugar packet. Here in the Yoplait, we're looking at about 4.3 grams of sugar per ounce. So I've got 1 packet there. Again, these are both 6-ounce containers. So you always have to keep in mind, how much of the food you're actually eating compared to what that nutrition label serving size says. So moving on to our grandma's cookies, we have got about 2 packets of sugar per ounce. So that's about 8 grams of sugar per ounce. Again, if you ate both cookies, that would be 2 ounces and around 16 grams of sugar. Moving on to our NutraGrain bar down here, it's got 2 packets of sugar per ounce. It clocks in right out about 8.5 grams of sugar per ounce. So bringing us to the Oreo, here, ounce for ounce, Oreos are packing about 11.7 grams of sugar per ounce. So I have that represented by 1, 2, 3 sugar packets. The Twinkies, again, are very comparable, looking at about 12 grams of sugar per ounce. So once more with my 3 sugar packets. Moving on, more and more sugar. Obviously, this more and more sugar as we go down this way. So next up is this little Hershey's spreading something or other treat. And this little guy is packing 12.7 grams of sugar per ounce. So once again, I'm representing that with 3 sugar packets. Further still, we've got this Snickers bar, which is packing about 14 grams of sugar per ounce. So I'm still representing that with the 3 sugar packets. Again, since the sugar packets are 4 grams of sugar each, I can't get always an exact value. Then we've got these Gummy Bears. So into these Gummy Bears, we're looking at about 13 grams of sugar per ounce, once again represented by 3 sugar packets. Now the Ring Pop, my beloved Ring Pop, bless its little Ring Pop heart, 22 grams of sugar per ounce. Now, of course, this Ring Pop on my finger here is only half an ounce. So with half of it, you're getting, the 11 grams of sugar. But again, what the whole point is here is so that you can see ounce for ounce, how do these foods compare to each other? And the only way to see that is to look at the same quantity of food and how much sugar that contains. So here we've got 22 grams of sugar per ounce in the Ring Pop. So now that brings us to these Skittles. Now I was absolutely shocked to find how much sugar these Skittles contain. It's 23 grams of sugar per ounce, right? And this is like a 2-ounce package. So you're actually getting the 46 grams of sugar if you eat the whole thing. So I've got my 23 grams of sugar per ounce represented here by about 5 sugar packets. And again, I would just pose to you, would you add 5 packets of sugar to your tea or to your coffee? Or another way to look at that is if you're adding 5 packets of sugar to your coffee or your tea, that's the same as eating half a bag of Skittles. Okay, I think I just invented a new candy called Snickles. We'll see how that goes. All right, so last in line, the absolute most sugar per ounce is this Jell-o. And this Jell-o is packing 25.3 grams of sugar per ounce. So if I've got a 3-ounce container here, then that was about 76 grams of sugar in the thing. So per ounce, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 packets of sugar representing this Jell-o, the absolute most sugar of all of these different foods that I've shown. I hope you enjoyed this closer look at the sugar contents of some of our favorite foods. In another video, I'm going to look at the carbohydrate content, because if you watched my video, The Truth About Carbohydrates, then you know that any starch basically acts just like sugar when it hits your bloodstream. So when we talk about diabetes and weight gain, we need to pay attention to the carbohydrates in addition to the sugar. So in a future video, I'm going to show how some of our other favorite snacks compare on the carbohydrate playing field. Again, it's worth noting that things like the Oreos and the Twinkies and the cookies have an additional carbohydrate content in addition to the sugar. So that's always something to figure in here as you're looking and saying, oh, okay, the Oreos are healthy. Remember that this is just looking at sugar content alone, and there's a lot of other factors that are going to dictate, well, how healthy is a food and how safe is it for my waistline. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave your comments, your topic requests, anything you would like to share in the comment section. I am always thrilled to see y'all's feedback and to know that there's actually people watching these videos. So if you want to learn more about me, you can visit my website at CorrinaRachel.com. Please be sure to subscribe to Psychetruth. We post a new video every day, so there's always good content on our channel. We hope you'll subscribe. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much for watching.